Well. We have finally hit the first game of the 2024 season for the Dallas Cowboys. And there are so many things going on with the Cowboys. It's always drama. We got the Dak Prescott contract. We have a new defensive coordinator. We have an injury on defense. We got a running back by committee. There are so many things that we need to talk about this season opener. I'm going to tell you why I believe this season opener is going to be a season-defining game for the Dallas Cowboys. Let's talk Cowboys. We're about to talk facts. Welcome, Cowboy fans and Cowboy haters alike. I'm the G. I'm the host of Let's Talk Cowboys, where we talk facts. Let's talk facts. This season one opener for the Dallas Cowboys is a huge deal. They are on the road against the Cleveland Browns, who had the number one overall defense of 2023. The Cowboys had one of the top offenses. They were top 5, as a matter of fact, but they kind of sputtered towards the end. And even though Dak Prescott put up phenomenal numbers, the problem is with the Cowboys, they couldn't run the ball, nor could they stop the run. And so as we go into this 2024 season, we see what the Dallas Cowboys, they drafted extremely well. They addressed a lot of issues that they needed to address. They addressed the linebacker issue. They addressed the offensive line issue. But is that going to be enough without them adding any significant free agency add-ons? And so I want to go down week one of what I consider to be the major matchups, the things that we need to be watching for, and then I'll give my prediction at the end of the video. So I think the first thing we need to watch is Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is the number one thing that's going on in this game to me. I mean, we're talking about the MVP runner-up. He was second team All-Pro. We're talking about his second year up under Mike McCarthy's offense, or in Mike McCarthy's offense. I mean, last year, Dak Prescott, 36 TDs, 9 interceptions, 4,516 yards, 105.9 QBR. I mean, Dak Prescott was on it. And we have a situation where I believe simply because the whole team failed against the Green Bay Packers, Dak Prescott has no contract. And I think this is why this is must-watch TV, and this is going to be a season-defining game, because Dak Prescott, every single week that he doesn't have a contract, it's always going to be a conversation, but especially with him going up against a top-ranked defense. Dak needs to do well. Dak needs to do well. I believe that Dak is poised to have a monster year, whether he has a contract or not. But I do pray that Dak Prescott is careful, because we saw what happened to Jordan Love. Jordan Love, on the second to the last play of the football game, basically, or on the last drive, I mean, the drive wasn't even significant. It wasn't even, I mean, it could be looked at as being significant, but I pretty much thought they had lost the game. But nevertheless, Jordan Love sprains, we now know, his MCL. And so while the MCL sprain is typically not an injury that keeps you out the whole season, nevertheless, it's going to keep him out a significant part of the season. And it could nag him the whole year. So Dak Prescott has a lot on the line when he goes out there tomorrow against the Cleveland Browns. And we know they have a ferocious pass rush, and we're going to talk about that later on. But Dak Prescott, he has a monumental task, because, again, when you think about the issues that he has going into the game, is, one, can the Cowboys run the ball? If you want to stop that ferocious Cleveland Brown pass rush, you're going to have to be able to run the ball. Number two, can the Cowboys stop the run? And the reason why I say can they stop the run, I mean, they got a break this week because Nick Chubb is not going to be able to play. So they got a break this week, in my opinion. But Cleveland will still try to run the ball simply because everyone is going to test those waters and see, did Mike Zimmer shore up what Dan Quinn couldn't do last year, which was stop the run. Dak Prescott has another issue because he has a new offensive line, and you got Tyler Guyton, and I think it's Cooper Beebe as the starting center, and so this is going to be a true test for them going against the defense that is so ferocious. And again, that this new defense, this new scheme, will they be able to keep the score down so that the Cowboys can figure out this Cleveland Brown defense? I mean, this is going to be a chess game between both of these offenses, Cleveland going up against Mike Zimmer as well as Mike Zimmer going up against Cleveland's defense. This is going to be a big deal. Things to watch number 2 is going to be Deshaun Watson. I don't really know what to say about this whole Deshaun Watson issue, because Deshaun Watson just hasn't been himself since he left Houston. And looking at everything that's going on in Houston now, it makes me wonder if sometimes he wonders if he should have stayed. I mean, even though he's with a top team, I mean, I would say a team with a great defense and some great pieces around him. The problem has been Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson was struggling even before the injury. And so now he's had this injury. And so this is a big game. This is a big game for him too, even though his contract is guaranteed. So he's going to get paid his money no matter what, $250 million, I think it is, or in that range. This is still a big deal to him because Deshaun Watson has not lived up to his billing. I mean, I clearly thought Deshaun Watson was going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the league at this point. And, we would be talking about him, playing in Super Bowls and things of that nature. But none of those things have panned out. I mean, you think about Watson has played for the Browns. He started 12 games over 2 seasons. 12 games over 2 seasons. He's only completed 60% of his passes. He's only thrown 14 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. I mean, that is crazy. And if he plays poorly with the kind of money that they're paying him, I mean, the reality of the situation, they can't get out of the contract. They can't get out of the contract. I mean, even if they cut him, I mean, $92 million in guaranteed dollars and another $172.77 million, on that contract. So Deshaun Watson, I mean, this is not about money any longer with Deshaun Watson. I know that if it was me, I would be wanting to prove to everyone that I'm worth the money that the Cleveland Browns signed me for. And we saw what Joe Flacco did last year. And people can say whatever they want to say. Joe Flacco benefited from a weak schedule, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. He did what he did. He did what he did. They got to the playoffs, and his numbers looked great. I mean, down there at the end, the chickens finally came home to roost, and everything still probably wasn't advantageous even to Joe Flacco. But at this stage in Deshaun Watson's career, he ought to be way better than Joe Flacco. So he has a lot to prove. He has a lot to prove. Is he worth the money? Is he worth the trade? Is he what everyone thought he was going to be coming out of college? So the matchup between Dak Prescott and Deshaun Watson, and I don't call it a matchup per se, but I think they both have a lot of things riding on this game in particular. I think it's going to be a season-defining game, and I think they both have a lot to prove. And so it's going to be a great game. Another thing to watch. So I want to turn my attention, now that we've talked about the quarterbacks, I want to turn my attention to the things to watch from the offense and the defensive perspective as it pertains to the Dallas Cowboys. And so when we think about offensive matchups, well, one, can the Dallas Cowboys run against the Cleveland Browns? I think it's going to be an uphill battle for them to run against this Cleveland Brown defense. I mean, I was kind of looking at some stats, and if I'm not mistaken, they only allowed, and I don't even know if it was 100-yard rushers, but they only had 5 games, I believe, where there were more than 100 yards rushing. So they have a serious defense. And when I think about it, we're going to see, this is going to be a great test for the Cowboys. Can they run the ball? I mean, you think about it. They got rid of Zeke because we saw that he had kind of diminished. And we saw last year with the running game they had, it wasn't nowhere near what they expected with Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard was coming off of an injury, and the running game just never got off the ground. And so we think about Zeke. Last year, Zeke with the New England Patriots, 642 yards. And I think the real thing, I think the thing that we really need to be looking for is, I think Zeke is not going to be the primary runner, even though he's listed as RB1. I think Ezekiel Elliott is really going to be more of the Dallas Cowboys short yard rushing back. He's going to be the short yardage back. If they need 1 yard, 2 yards, down there by the goal line, that's what that's what Ezekiel Elliott is going to be. The real question is what is Rico Dowdle and what is Deuce Vaughn going to do? Because I truly believe that Deuce Vaughn is on the bubble, even though he made the team. I believe that Deuce Vaughn is on the bubble of going back to the practice squad, because I'm also wondering if Dalvin Cook will be on the 53-man roster this week. Will Dalvin Cook suit up and will Dalvin Cook play? But when you look at even between these three running backs, they barely had 1,000 yards. I mean, Zeke last year, 642 yards. Rico Dowdle couldn't stay healthy, 361 yards. He showed flashes at times, but we don't really know what we got with him because he shared the carries with Tony Pollard. He shared carries with Zeke Elliott when he was here. So I really would like to see Rico Dowdle, in for 3 or 4 series to see, can he be the bell cow running back? And I'm very questionable on whether Deuce Vaughn can be the bell cow running back. I think he's going to be more of a change of pace running back, maybe some gadget plays, maybe some sweeps, some screens. We'll see how that turns out. But I really want to see Dalvin Cook. He only had 214 yards last season, but I really want to see what Dalvin Cook can do. Can they work Dalvin Cook also into this offense? And because he didn't go to training camp the whole season, I'm doubtful that he'll even play tomorrow. But I would love to see him play tomorrow and see what he does against this offense. Do against the Cleveland Browns defense. And so, again, can the Cowboys run against the Cleveland defense? Can they do it? Even though they were the number 5 total offense, it wasn't because of the running game. It was because of Dak Prescott's arm. And so, again, that number 1 defense, they were great against the pass and the run. And so we're going to look at some more things as we keep going. But another thing we need to be watching for outside of the running game, let's talk about the wide receivers. CeeDee Lamb, not in training camp. I don't think that's going to be a huge problem, but I think it's going to be a problem because even CeeDee said the one thing he wanted to get up to speed on was contested catches. In other words, even though he was working out and I think he's in shape, he's even bulked up some, I think the issue is he hasn't been going against an opposing defense, contesting catches, contesting routes, getting his body tested and contested when people are bump and run or putting their hands on him, jamming him at the line. He hasn't really got a whole lot of that. So the issue is going to be, is CeeDee Lamb going to be able to be as effective as I think he'll be after about game number 3 or 4? But then we have another issue as it pertains to, is Jalen Tolbert going to step up? In order for this offense to thrive, Jalen Tolbert is really going to have to step up. He's got to be an effective number 3 wide receiver. Brandon Cooks is the 2, but I think Brandon Cooks is going to line up in the slot. So the question is can Tolbert, can he be the effective outside receiver that the Cowboys need? Can he be that receiver? Because I truly believe the clock is ticking on him, and it's not going to be till the end of the season. And I'm going to bring this up in a moment. But the issue is can Jalen Tolbert step up and really help this offense open up? Because if he can, it's also going to help the running game. It's also going to help the offense not see these easy cover 2 defenses against him and them bracketing CeeDee Lamb or doubling CeeDee Lamb and saying that we'll single cover all your other receivers because they can't do anything. And again, I think Brandon Cooks is set for a great season. It's going to be another year with him with Dak Prescott, and I think Dak has built up even more trust for Brandon Cooks. So I do believe that Brandon Cooks is going to be better in the offense this year than he was last year. And the X factor for me is Jalen Tolbert, because this guy, Jalen Brooks, I think his name is. Jalen Brooks has been making noise in the training camps, I think, for the last 2 seasons. And so Jalen Brooks is going to be a big deal. I mean, he may actually get some playing time and start alternating in and out with Jalen Tolbert if Tolbert is not up for the task. But the guy who I have my eye on is Ryan Flournoy. This guy is, to me, the next Dez Bryant for the Dallas Cowboys. And I think he's going to work his way up the depth chart. I think by next season, especially if Tolbert doesn't pan out, Ryan Flournoy, 6'1", 4'4", 440. He's been working out, I believe, with Chris Carter. This guy's going to be a heck of a wide receiver in the pros. And if Tolbert doesn't step up, I believe that Ryan Flournoy is going to emerge in this season. But I'm hoping that the Cowboys get Flournoy some time in this game, because they're going to need all hands on deck. They're going to need someone else who can get open other than CeeDee Lamb. And I'm thankful that I think Jake Ferguson is about to take some steps. Jake Ferguson is going to be someone that everyone's going to have to watch also, because he's going to have to alleviate some pressure off Dak. Because with this Cleveland Brown defense, Dak's going to have to get the ball out of his hands in a hurry to avoid sacks, to avoid pressure, to even avoid injury. I mean, he's going to have to get that ball out of his hand in a hurry and get it to these wide receivers. And it's going to have to be someone other than CeeDee Lamb, because I believe that they're going to do everything they can do, to stop CeeDee Lamb from getting his hands on the ball. So that's another thing we're going to have to watch on offense. And another thing we're going to have to watch on offense is Dallas's new offensive line. They are definitely going to have to scheme to help. Who I'm in particular worried about is Tyler Guyton. Tyler Guyton will be going up against Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is a whole different animal. He's a different animal, man. He is not the typical defensive end. He is the reigning defensive player of the year. I mean, he could have arguably, this guy's a monster. This guy's an absolute monster. And so Dak is going to have to always know where he is. And even though Zeke is not the best runner anymore, where I am glad they got Zeke back is that Zeke is good in pass blocking. He is very good out of the backfield blocking. It was the one thing that Tony Pollard just couldn't do well. Zeke does it well. Zeke will be able to help chip, I believe, Myles Garrett to slow him down some, but Myles Garrett isn't the only piece of that defense that needs to be watched, but he is the one they need to watch the most. But I think Zeke will be able to help some with this pass rush against the Cleveland Browns, free up a little time with Dak Prescott. But I'm telling us, Myles Garrett isn't the only thing they need to watch, but Tyler Guyton is going to have his hands full. I'm also interested to see what Cooper Beebe does. I mean, we saw in the preseason, I mean, he was mauling guys. I mean, he was knocking guys down and getting to the second level in some cases. So I know he's got the power, but when you're going up against pros, you know, what's your technique going to look like also? So Guyton and Cooper Beebe, this is going to be a huge deal for the offense. And so this is also going to tell us a lot of things we need to know. It's going to fit into the running game. It's going to fit into the pass game. It's going to fit into how comfortable will Dak Prescott be against this Cleveland Browns offense. I mean, this Cleveland Brown defense. Next, things to watch on the defensive front. Micah Parsons is going to eat. I think some of the pieces that the Cowboys have added around Micah Parsons is going, you know, those pieces are going to allow him to eat. And Mike Zimmer, he doesn't blitz as much as Dan Quinn. Thank God he doesn't, because with Dan Quinn, it was you live and die by the blitz. And because it was a smaller defense, and if they run on you, well, the blitz, you're in the backfield, and the backfield or the running back is up the field. So it's a huge issue for the Cowboys that they got Mike Zimmer, who is a run-stop specialist. Also, Mike Zimmer, when you look at his track record against, I think, Stefanski and these guys from that coaching, they all seem to be from the same spot, you know, the Shanahans and all of them. Zimmer does well against their offenses in particular. Zimmer does well. And so this is one of the reasons I'm telling you Jerry brought him in. He brought him in to stop the run, and he brought him in to be able to stop the Stefanskis, brought him in to be able to stop the coach for the Rams, to be able to stop the coach for the Green Bay Packers, because they're all related in the way of how they call plays, and I think from that same coaching tree. So it's a huge deal that Zimmer is in, and the way he's going to use Micah Parsons, I'm so interested in seeing how he's going to use him while not blitzing. He's got ways that's already being talked about of how he's going to free up Micah Parsons so Micah Parsons can eat. And Micah Parsons is especially probably going to eat because the left tackle for the Cleveland Browns, his name is Jedrick Willis. He's ruled out for Sunday. And the right tackle, Jack Conklin, he remains questionable. They're both coming off of, I think they had season-ending knee injuries. So they're both, one's not coming and the other is questionable. So for that reason, I think the Cleveland Browns are also going to have a hard time against the Dallas Cowboys, especially without Nick Chubb. They're going to be running back by committee. It won't be the ultimate test. We'll get somewhat of a test, but I'm confident that Mike Zimmer's going to stop this run, especially without Nick Chubb, and especially without Nick Chubb, he's going to be able to stop the run. And with them missing two guys off their offensive line, I think the Cowboys are going to fare well, and I think Micah Parsons is going to eat against the Cleveland Browns. And so another defensive matchup, and this is the one that I'm very concerned about. I'm very concerned about Caelen Carson. Caelen Carson is going to be a big deal in this game. With Deron Blandhurt, Trayvon Diggs, just back from that knee injury, it makes me wonder, should the Cowboys have not been stingy and signed Stephon Gilmore again? I don't think Stephon Gilmore would have signed with the Cowboys for $10 million. I think he probably would have gave him a better deal because he wanted to come back to the Cowboys. But we're penny pinching right now. I hope the Stephon Gilmore or not re-signing Stephon Gilmore doesn't come back to bite this defense, because You got to think about if you're the Cleveland Browns, and if there's one weakness that you are looking at in particular on the Dallas defense. I mean, they shored up the defensive line. They shored up the linebacker crew. They got Mike Zimmer, so we know they're going to be a lot better up under Zimmer than they were with Dan Quinn. But the question becomes, now with the injury to Deron Bland, can Caelen Carson, will he be able to match up against Amari Cooper? Wow. Because even if you put Trayvon Diggs on Amari Cooper, well, Cleveland added another weapon to the arsenal. They got Jerry Jeudy. And I know Jerry Jeudy wasn't doing what everyone expected in Denver. But I think Jerry Jeudy is still a high-quality wide receiver. And so it's going to be pick your poison for the Dallas Cowboys. They have Elijah Moore. He's not a slouch either. They have Elijah Moore. So what is it going to look like? I mean, what is Caelen Carson, will he be able to withstand these guys? I mean, this is a huge test going up against these wide receivers and Deshaun Watson. And not to mention, I mean, they got David, I think it's Njoku. I mean, Cleveland is very formidable. I'm very confident in the safeties that the Cowboys have and the linebackers, but they have a really, really, really good receiving crew. And Caelen Carson, for me, big question, but also a big question. Trayvon Diggs. Is Trayvon Diggs all the way back? Because he's about to be put to the ultimate test. I mean, I'm telling you, these wide receivers, and he went up against Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper knows him. They went up against each other in practice in Dallas. Cooper knows him. Cooper knows him, and he knows Cooper. So this is going to be a game for the ages. And this is why I say, for me, I'm going to talk about this in another video, but I think it's great that Mike McCarthy has a 21-game plan. And obviously that means they're making the Super Bowl in this 21-game plan. So in this opening game of the season, this is a defining moment. I mean, it's not a divisional game, but it's a road game. It's in a tough environment, and it's against a very physical opponent, which seems to be the Cowboys' weakness over the last 3 seasons. This is what makes champions. Can they match up against this ferocious defense? Can they match up against this ferocious defense? Mike McCarthy, you're about to be put to the test. Running back by committee, about to be put to the test. Wide receivers other than CeeDee Lamb about to be put to the test. New defensive line, 2 rookies on the line about to be put to the test. I'm not worried about Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott right now is at the top of his game. I don't think we've seen the best of Dak Prescott yet. CeeDee Lamb, I'm not worried. CeeDee Lamb is going to be a stud. Once he works his way back in, he's going to be ready. I think he'll catch maybe somewhere between 5 to 8 passes. I think he'll be fine. But it's a big test for this entire Cowboys team. But my prediction, I'm very confident in what this team is going to do. In particular, I'm very confident in Dakota Prescott. Very confident in Dak. I think Dak has a lot to prove, especially if he doesn't have that deal by tomorrow. Dak's going to have a lot to prove, because when we look at the first 3 games, all 3 of those quarterbacks, when we think about Jordan Love, and I'm sorry, the first 2 games, we think about Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts. Well, some people say that those 2 quarterbacks are better than Dak. Well, they didn't look better than Dak. They didn't look better than Dak in that game. I mean, Jordan Love was throwing passes I mean, he was throwing some passes that 2 of those should have been picked. One of them for sure should have been a pick 6, and the other one should have been picked. I mean, he was making some very ill-advised passes. I mean, he looked to me like the Jordan Love of the early season last year. And Jalen Hurts, I feel for you. Some of the things that Jalen Hurts was doing, some of the turnovers, he's still a turnover machine. And Dak Prescott, that last season with Caelen Moore, Dak had a thumb injury, but he was a turnover machine too. Caelen Moore puts you in some of those situations. By the way he calls plays, he puts you in some of them situations where you're going to be susceptible to interceptions. So Jalen Hurts, with the problems that you're having, didn't look better than Dak Prescott. And when we look at the Kansas City game, Kansas City, Lamar Jackson, again, Dak Prescott would have got destroyed had he missed the throws that Lamar Jackson, once again, I'm a huge Lamar Jackson fan, but people say he's better than Dak Prescott. He hasn't proved it. He hasn't proved it. He's 2-4. And he's 2-4 on his legs and his arm. And we saw he missed a couple of wide open throws in the end zone. Cost him the game against the Kansas City Chiefs. So this is going to be a huge game for Dak Prescott. I'm not only predicting the Cowboys to win, I believe the Cowboys will win. I'm thinking 21-10, 24-13-ish. That's what I'm thinking. I think that the Cowboys are going to put up at least 24 points. I think Deshaun Watson is not going to have a great game, especially without their running game. I think the Cowboys defense, Mike Zimmer's defense, is going to rise to the occasion. I believe the Cowboys wins this game 21-10, 24-13, somewhere in there. And I expect by the end of the day on Sunday, Dak Prescott is going to be somewhere in the top 5 as it applies to yards, touchdowns, and overall ranking. Cowboys with the win. That's going to do it for me. That's going to be my time. Thank you again for tuning in to Let's Talk Cowboys. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share this video so others can see all of the latest news about the Dallas Cowboys. Until the next time, Let's Talk Cowboys, where we talk facts. Peace.